There you
Wait, a little story time. Okay, got a little story time. Everybody loves to talk about Wade Schalles putting the X on the mat and pinning his opponent there. Can you elaborate on that?
go. It was my 100th pin at Clarion. Or it was going to be, if I pinned, it was going to be number 100. And nobody in the history of the sport ever got to 100. So it was a unique opportunity evening. And I was president of our fraternity, Phi Sigma Epsilon at Clarion. And we were in our meeting on Monday night. The match was Friday night. And one of the brothers brought up, "Hey, Wade, you going to get number 100 this week?" Probably. I don't know. We'll find out. He says, "Hey, let's put an X on the mat and see if you can pin him on the X." I went, no, we're not doing that. And then all of a sudden the whole fraternity going, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea." and we had our fraternity every spring, we'd have a walkathon where we raise money for cerebral palsy, where we go out and have people pledge, a dime a mile for every, someone walk. And then our fraternity would walk on a Saturday, certain distance, and they get, $1.10 from this guy and 90 cents from Susie. And eventually it was a couple $100, $500 to go to cerebral palsy. It was one of our feel good, do good, because we could screw up a lot of our fraternity, party. And so we had to do something, offset that. So we did the cerebral palsy walkathon. And one of the fraternity brothers goes, "What we'll do is, instead of the walkathon, why don't we go out and get pledges to see if Wade could pin on the X, would you pledge $1 or $2 or $5?" And then all the fraternity brothers, "Yeah, that's great." I'm going, "Wait a minute, I'm the one that has to do this stuff. I'm either going to be the hero or the bum here. If I don't get a pin on the X, I'm going to be the idiot. And cerebral palsy is not going to make any money. Well, I don't want this pressure. No. Well, one thing led to another. Next thing you know, it was going to happen. So the trainer, as they put the mats down and taped them down before the dual meet, before the team showed up or any fans, he went out with a little white athletic tape and had a little X, just a 2-inch strip, where unless someone told you it was on the mat, you wouldn't have noticed it was there. So it wasn't a big X. And so we wrestled in Lock Haven that night, and Coach Bub didn't know about it. That we kept it quiet from him. But by the time the match started to go, everybody in the stands knew about the X except Coach Bub. I don't know how he didn't know, but Greg Johnson was our assistant coach at that time. He was a 3-time NCAA champ from Michigan State, a 118 pounder, and we call him G-Man. He knew about it, but he didn't say anything. And so I went out and I happened to lock up a cradle, but unfortunately my cradle was I was on the other side of the mat from the X when I got my hands locked. I went, "Oh shit." So I started pushing him and dragging him across the mat toward the X. And now I don't know what Bub was doing, but I heard that Bub was trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. I mean, I had the cradle. I could just turn him over right there where I was at, pushing him the whole way across the mat. And as the closer I got to the X, the louder the crowd got, because they anticipated the X. And I got to the X, and I jacked him up on his back, and he kind of slid across the X a little bit. And for those who wrestle or been around wrestling, you would know that athletic tape on a wrestling mat, if you just rub your hand like that across the tape rolls up immediately. It doesn't stick to the mat. It just doesn't stick to a wrestling mat really well.
Right.
So when I put him up on his shoulders, his back slid across the X and rolled the X up. So when the referee slapped the mat, he got up. The X was stuck on his back of his neck, rolled up tape, and now the place just erupted. And we had a full house. I mean, Clarion was doing really well in wrestling then. And when we wrestled dual meets at home, good luck finding a seat. They were in the rafters. I mean, it was packed house every time. And it was packed for this one. And, I started walking off the mat, and Bub walked on the mat. I went, oh, shit. Here it comes. And he said, stand here. Yes, sir. And I didn't know it, but he had planned, if I got the pin, the announcer and the PA system, ladies and gentlemen, what you just witnessed is the first time anyone in the history of NCAA wrestling ever reached 100 pins in a career. And, your wrestler here, Wade Schalles, did, yay, that type of thing. And while they're all cheering, he's standing there next to me going, and Coach Bub never swore. He never said the word shit, ever, And he said, what the? And there was an F word in there. Is that tape doing on the mat? This really was not something he would have allowed to have happen. And that is one of the great things of Coach Bob. He was, again, amazing. What the? Is that tape? I went, oh, shit. If he would say that word, he is serious. I haven't heard that in 5 years here. Oh God, I'm in trouble. But I knew the tape was no longer there. And I went, Coach, what are you talking about? The tape's on the mat. You know damn well that the tape is right over. He's pointing and he looks. And I said, I don't see any tape. You see any tape, Coach? The kid had walked off the mat. It still stuck to his back of his neck, which added to the insult to injury. I mean, I didn't plan it that way, but it was really funny. And I'm sorry for the athlete that went through it, but it was really funny. And there's no tape on the mat, Coach. I don't know what you're talking about. And he just in Coach Bub's in the middle of form, he just went, oh, I can't believe this. It's happening to me. But anyhow, so that was my 100.
Yeah.
As it turned out, my son in high school, he was going to be his 25th pin of the season at Oviedo High School in Orlando. And I didn't know anything about it. One of the wrestlers put an X on the mat, and I saw him dragging this guy across the mat. I'm going, oh no. Everybody's laughing because he drags his opponent over there and pins him on the X and gets up and looks at me and goes, winks at me, I'm going, oh my God, help me.
Perfect.
What goes around comes around, Schalles. But so that was the X.
I definitely couldn't let you go before I asked. Yeah, I definitely couldn't let you go before asking you about that. That was an amazing story that still makes me chuckle today when I hear that. One last thing.